American measurement system is a complete mess. This container of milk is measured in gallons. This container of juice has 3 different volumetric measurements, none of them round numbers. And this chicken broth, also a liquid, is measured in weight? We have the metric system, and we sometimes use that one too. So where did our crazy measurements come from? Okay, some people might think that because the United States is such a young country, our system of measurement must be similarly young. But that couldn't be further from the truth. See, our measurement system bears relics from some of the oldest measurements made by our species. Take the foot, for example. You may have noticed that it's approximately the length of an actual adult male foot. This isn't a coincidence. In ancient times, there was no worldwide standard. People just used what they saw to measure the world around them. Therefore, things like body parts and steps and daily activities played a big role in how people measured things. Now, a lot of people think that the original foot comes from the shoe size of King Henry I. And while he may have standardized the foot we use today, the reality is that the measurement predates the English monarchy by several millennia. Human feet were used to measure things all over the ancient world in Greece, Rome, and Egypt. And actually, most of the US customary system comes from these kinds of ancient measurements. The mile comes from the term for 1,000 paces, and acres based on the amount of land an ox can plow in a day, and the word pound and its associated unit lb come from 2 different Latin words that were both used in measuring weight. Because these kinds of measurements were still being used in the 15 and 1600s, the early European settlers brought them to what is now the United States. Now, for centuries, when the world was pretty insular and commerce was local, these kinds of measurements worked. But by the 1700s, this became a disaster. Looking at this map of how Europe defined the foot in the year 1700, we can easily see why. If you read a European engineering textbook that measured distances, you'd have to check where the book was published, because a foot could be anywhere from 27.6 centimeters long in Spain to a whopping 37.9 centimeters long in the Ottoman Empire. Different towns, regions, and countries all use different units, and for this reason, trade was difficult, taxation was difficult, and science and engineering were difficult. Then came the French Revolution. As the revolution swept away the old government and systems, French scientists received a pretty radical task. Don't just change the measurement system. Create a new one from scratch. Enter the metric system. Instead of using units that were based on farmers and body parts, they wanted a decimalized system that was standardized throughout the whole nation. And that's why the metric system makes so much sense. It was designed in relatively modern times with engineering, science, and calculation in mind. After decades, it caught on in France and then started spreading to the rest of Europe. So, why not the Americans? The easiest answer you might come to is that the Atlantic Ocean separates the United States from Europe. So while Europe was going through changes and doing a lot of trade, the United States was just too far away for it to have all caught on. No. But the question is more complicated than that, because remember, in the 1790s, the United States was a brand new country. And just like in France, they too were getting rid of the established norms of the previous regime, looking at everything and establishing their own new systems. In fact, Thomas Jefferson was a huge proponent of decimalization, like they were doing in France in the metric system. So it seemed like if a couple of these French scientists just went across the Atlantic to America, they had a good chance of establishing that system there. And in fact, one French scientist did board a ship, set sail for America with measurement tools and metric standards, and tried to bring the metric system to America. But he was just one man on one ship, sailing across the Atlantic Ocean in the 1790s. And the thing about the Atlantic Ocean in the 1790s was that it was full of pirates. Yarr! That's right. The scientist responsible for bringing the metric system to America was captured by pirates. Yarr! He did not survive. Now, of course, it would be ridiculous to assume that one pirate attack stopped the metric system from crossing the Atlantic, but it was a missed opportunity at a time where every opportunity counted. Unlike in Europe, where you had towns and cities that had been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years, the United States was a nation that was rapidly booming during the industrial era. You had swamps turning into metropolises in just a matter of decades. It was far more difficult to try out a new measurement system in such a period of rapid expansion and construction than it would have been in the more established nations of Europe. And so Americans never stopped using this ancient system of measurement, and we still use it to this day. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. And if you could consider a like or a subscribe on this channel, it would really help me continue making content like this for all of you. Thank you.